Boys and girls, welcome to a lesson on corrosion of metals, and our focus today is specifically on iron corrosion. So metals refer to a certain group of materials that share certain properties that materials that are non-metals do not usually have. These properties can be being malleable, ductile, sonorous, lustrous, or just being generally good conductors of heat and electricity. But over time, metals can and tend to change and lose these metallic properties, and in so become nonmetals. This is all caused by a process known as corrosion. The type of corrosion you are probably most familiar with is rusting. Rusting is only one type of corrosion, and it's a type of corrosion that happens only to iron. So the only metal that can be or can rust is iron and no other metal. But now you're thinking to yourself, but what about a metal like copper? Doesn't copper rust? If you look at the Statue of Liberty, when it was first built, it was the color of copper. It had all the properties of copper, being shiny is one of them, and it was a orange-brown color that copper usually is. But over time, it became this dull greenish-blue color you can see on the right. So isn't that rusting? Well, the answer is actually no. It is a form of copper corrosion, but it's not rusting. Only iron rusts. So if we go back to iron, if you look at iron's properties before rusting, iron is malleable, which means it can be hammered into and bent into permanent shapes without breaking. It is lustrous, which means it's shiny. It is a good conductor of heat and electricity. It is strong, so it can hold heavy weights and take heavy forces. And it is ferromagnetic, which means it can be attracted to a magnetic field. However, after rusting, it is not malleable. It is dull. It is now an insulator, so it cannot conduct electricity or heat. It is weak, and it is no longer attracted to magnetic fields. So how does iron come to rust? Well, iron rusts when it comes into contact with water and oxygen. Both water and oxygen can be found in the air. So even just leaving iron lying around doesn't mean it's safe from rust, because both water and oxygen are typically found in the atmosphere. So if we take iron nail, for example, and we add O2 and some moisture from the water, we will get a rust, the corrosion of iron, which we call rusting. And then the shiny iron nails will lose their shine and start to typically look like this image over here. So how can we prevent metal corrosion? Well, when metals corrode, it's usually because they have come into contact with certain chemicals in the air, water, or the soil. To prevent corrosion, we can coat metals with a protective layer. This is usually why metal surfaces are painted. Well, the word you don't see here, but that's what it is going to say. So I'll write it in for you. We usually paint, right? We usually paint over metals. We usually paint over metals like you see in the picture image over here, and this protects the metal underneath the paint from the atmosphere, the air, which has the chemicals that can cause corrosion. So a popular method of preventing iron from rusting is to galvanize the iron. And this word galvanize sounds fancy, but all it means is that we coat a thin layer of zinc metal over the iron, and zinc does not rust. So remember, iron is the only metal that rusts. And since zinc is such an easy metal to do this with, we use zinc, and we coat the iron with zinc, and that stops the iron underneath the zinc from rusting. An interesting fact, when iron rusts from tap water, it can form a green rust, as you can see in the image here. The green rust is formed because of the chlorine inside of the tap water, causing the iron to corrode. So green rust is caused by chlorine corrosion of iron, and that's what causes iron to also sometimes turn into have a green rust instead of a typical red one. Well, I hope that helped, and never stop learning. Till next time, have a good one.